Joining us is the voice of the Duke Blue Devils, longtime friend of this program, David Shumate. Shu, thanks for hanging out with us today.
No, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
So, Shu, do you have your best polo pressed and your khakis ready to go? Because football starts here in 5 weeks, friend.
Oh, look, we were ready to go yesterday down at Media Days in Charlotte. As you said, you got to get all the polos right. You got to get everything lined up and stop wearing shorts, right? Even though it's 150 degrees outside, you got to start wearing the long pants again.
That is for sure. Duke going to open up against Elon August 28th, a Thursday night game, and then they have a pretty tough ride here. But what Duke is built on right now, Shu, with Manny Diaz, he always talks about the championship standard. And in year one for Duke, they tried to attain that standard and I think surprised a lot of people. And then the big bad head of the transfer portal and honestly just, studs graduating like a Jordan Moore and an Eli Pankow, now you got to bring some new guys in. How challenging is it going to be for year two for Manny Diaz to keep that championship standard going and that momentum from year one?
I don't think it'll be terribly challenging. And I think it's largely due to how he began his tenure in Durham. And I think, we were talking this time a year ago, and I think a lot of people, to put it kindly, maybe had questions marks about what Duke's season was going to look like after Mike Elko had left to go to Texas A&M and all the pieces that maybe left in the portal. A lot of guys stayed. And, Manny Diaz came in and said very early it was about the players in the locker room and kind of preached this step-by-step mentality, day by day. He's not a big, slogan guy, that sort of thing. He's more about the work and getting to know the guys. And then, of course, you go out and have the season they did a year ago, and now you're kind of in the bucket where Duke is one of the teams, certainly down in Charlotte, but also nationally it's getting talked about. Some of that I'm sure we're going to talk about Doeren Mensah, but also everything they return on the defensive side of the football and along the offensive line. Expectations are starting to creep up. And I think for him, he's been very consistent in saying the mentality has to still be the same. Like Duke won 9 games last year because of a process and step-by-step and continual improvement. And you have to have that when you have expectations as well, because if you get over your skis in terms of what people anticipate of you, you can, trip up at any given moment. So I think that day-by-day approach that they have and the belief he instilled in this team and the confidence he instilled a year ago should pay dividends going into this season, even though, as I said, I think the expectations have been raised a little bit.
David Shumate, Duke football play-by-play commentator at Duke PB on X. Join us on the Adam Gold Show, and you led me perfectly into my next question, which was about Doeren Mensah. This offseason, they land him from Tulane, that $8 million NIL deal. From your perspective in the booth, David, how big of a shift is that both on the field but also in broadcast anticipation of what Mensah is going to look like on the field this season?
I mean, what he did at Tulane, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, and I guess I'll take the first part of your question first. The on-the-field stuff is obvious, right? I mean, Malik Murphy was a really good quarterback for Duke, had a cannon for an arm, but obviously was limited in terms of his ability to be a part of the quarterback run game. That just wasn't a part of the system last year for Duke, and if you talk to the offensive line I have the last few weeks, the run game really wasn't where they wanted it to be. It was, to say pass heavy, maybe underselling it, and had the long ball work, but Duke did have a hard time last year sustaining drives. And I know they want to get the run game going this year. That's tricky, right, when you don't have the quarterback as a part of the run game. So that's the first thing that Mensah brings to the table. Not that his rushing statistics at Tulane were crazy, but when you watch his mobility, his ability to throw on the run, get to see a little bit of it in spring, looking forward to see it in camp when they get going on Monday. So that ability to move with his legs, and Coach Diaz likes to talk about the fact that it forces the defense to defend 2 plays, right? The play that was called, and then when you scramble, there's another play you got to defend, which is so stressful for a defense. And, that to me is going to be the interesting thing to watch with Mensah and what he brings to this. And then there's the cultural fit that he brings in as well. I mean, Tulane is known for its academic standing, and I think high academics were important to him, and one of the reasons he chose to continue his playing career here at Duke. So there's the cultural fit in the locker room. I had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him, and you can see how he fits in with this group really well. So I'm excited to see what he brings this year, and I think you can feel that hype that you were talking about building in the fan base as well, because Mensah was one of the crown jewels in the portal, so to speak, when it came to quarterbacks or, heck, any player out there. So for Duke to get him, I think is no small thing, and leads a lot of people to think that Duke can do special things this season.
David Shumate joining us, voice of the Duke Blue Devils football and basketball as well here on the Adam Gold Show. I'm assuming that Jaquez Moore would never like to hear the word boot or foot ever again associated with each other unless he's riding a horse. Clearly they missed his presence last year in the rushing game, as you mentioned. We're all going to assume he's healthy, ready to go, and he might be on a mission this season to surpass the 2023 totals when he had to share a backfield and now just kind of tote the mail on his own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of the times, right? I think back to 2023, Jordan Waters was the lead back. Obviously, he played NC State a year ago, and Jaquez Moore was just coming into his own. Last year, he was supposed to be the lead back, gets dinged up early in a game up against Northwestern, comes back literally for one snap against Carolina, dings up something else, and doesn't really play the entirety of the season. Star Thomas was really good, a transfer that came in. He's now gone. Peyton Jones is back, so they feel good about where the running back room is, and a lot of that is because of Jaquez Moore. And, you know, you don't want guys to go through injuries, but when you talk to all of them, and there's been a couple on this roster for Duke, I mean, you think about Nick Morris, who was supposed to be the starting Mike linebacker a year ago, gets hurt early, plays one game, doesn't play the rest of the season. The tight end room was decimated. Nicky Damolin's no longer here, but Jeremiah Hazley is working his way back. He got hurt in that Northwestern game as well, a season-ending injury. All those guys talk candidly about the perspective you learn in that process, right? Where you're out at practice, you're rehabbing, but you're not able to play, and the value it teaches you for the game, because some of these guys, these are some of the first season-ending injuries they're dealing with, and the patience you learn from that, but also the life experience that comes with that. So I'm really interested to see what not just Jaquez, but some of those other guys I mentioned do this year, because of that new perspective, that not newfound love for the game, but you know what I mean? When something's taken away from you, you feel like it's always going to be there. You appreciate a little bit more, and the work becomes a little bit more intentional. And as I mentioned, the run game last year, there were some struggles, but Jaquez not being there was a huge part of that. I think that's something they're hoping to lean on this year.
Final question for David Shumate, voice of the Blue Devils, join us this afternoon on the Adam Gold Show. You brought up the word culture in one of your previous answers, and I found it ironic how Manny Diaz yesterday at ACC Kickoff talked about how the players set the expectations at Duke. So, David, as someone who's close to this program more than anybody else, what is it about Diaz's message, or what is it about the bond of this team that has players so bought in and just ready to compete and believe in this program each and every year?
I think what it is candor. I mean, you mentioned that. He actually was, when he was at the podium yesterday down in Charlotte, made a joke about, and you guys probably know because you've been hearing him talking to everybody, that, like, you hear the word culture at media days, it's like scratch it off your bingo card, right? That's like everyone's favorite word. And I said over the top, he's not big into slogans and things like that. He is big into honesty, and that the culture is driven by the players. And you think about what has been done here at Duke in these last 4 years now, as he goes into his second season. A lot of these guys that are in the redshirt senior seasons that have been here a while, they were recruited by David Cutcliffe. And people think that's a lifetime ago, but that was only 4 years ago that he was, you know, the coach here at Duke. And obviously Mike Elko was here for 2 years, and he brought in some guys. But these are guys that have been through a couple different coaching staffs, several different schematic changes, have been through the wars a little bit, but they've been the common thread of the turnaround that was authored, but also now the fact that Duke is getting that national attention, and talk about one of the teams that could maybe get to Charlotte for an ACC tournament title game. And that is what Manny Diaz instills in them, this honesty that you are in control of this. And with that comes ownership, with that comes confidence, but also with that comes accountability. And I think, you know, with the caliber of kids that we have at Duke and young men, they appreciate that level of honesty, that level of candor, and they work that much harder when they feel like they have some ownership of it, that it's not being dictated from on high. And I think Manny Diaz has a great feel for that.
He's ready to pull the polo out of the plastic and smell a new college football season. David Shumate, voice of the Blue Devils. Shu, always great to catch up with you, friend.
Yeah, and before I go, I know, Graham, your time is winding down there. You've always been the best. Appreciate you having me on, and good luck to you, brother. But you guys have a great weekend.
You're too kind, David. I really appreciate the kind words, and appreciate you letting me get coffee with you one afternoon, just get to pick your brain about not just the business of play-by-play, but also just the business of sports radio in general. So really appreciate the mentorship.
No, for sure. Anytime. See you, fellas.